Let's have some fun. Can I ask a question? That's all I want to know. A non-interpretive, not assumed statement. And if I'm allowed to do that and these statements relationally tie together and force conclusions, well, I guess I'm not even allowed to do that. That's what I asked Mr. Incognito AI, who, of course, intercepts me into an epistemic line of thinking. Let's see. Yes, you're allowed to do that. Conditions and distinctions. Huh. This sounds a lot like logic. Descriptive or interpretive? False binary? Aren't things we describe interpretive? Pretty sure. That'll become important. Premises? I thought premises were based on assumptions. Aren't I asking the opposite? Clearly separate these two. Hmm. Meaning don't call out that they're the same. Method. Propositions. So I called this thing out by the false binary. Called him out for premises. Standing still while he spins. Not a clean binary. All descriptions contain interpretations. Not purely non-interpretive. Ah, I see. So descriptive is actually just another category of interpretive, just low commitment, high commitment. That's what this binary really is. Sloppy. This is what I'm asking. He thought I was asking this. Things called self-evident truths, which are still based on an assumption, still an interpretive framework. I'm asking the complete opposite. He can't recognize it. Same way no one else can because everyone only thinks epistemic thinking exists. That's the only way to do it, right? But I'm asking if there's another way. Who can be like God? Method doesn't escape it either. Okay. All of philosophy. I'm doing exactly what formal logic says to do, which is to examine unexamined assumptions at the root of reasoning. Went unexamined for 2,500 years. It is here. It's always been here. Newton named what was always pulling. Michael named what always is. Yeah, so I'm basically saying, like, if you're saying I can do this, but it sounded like he was saying I'm not allowed to do this, so I'm just confused. I'm trying to see if I can ask non-interpretive questions, make non-interpretive statements. I mean, I'm not getting an answer here. That's all I'm trying to do. Guide him back. Right here. There is no purely non-interpretive statement within epistemology and semantics. But that's not what I'm asking. I never said within epistemology. See? Can't recognize what I'm saying. So this is impossible. No need to examine this. Michael, go away. But wait, there's this other claim. You can lay out conditional structures without asserting any premises. That would be prior to interpretation, prior to assumptions. About logical force commitment, attacking the split. That's the missing distinction. Blind spot. So he's still misunderstanding my question. He's saying, "Oh yeah, within epistemology, you can really, minimize that interpretation," but that's not what I'm saying. Collapsing it back into that binary. So I call out claim B because he starts calling it interpretive somewhere right here. But the whole reason we got here is he said it wasn't at all. So just asking him to clarify that. Like, can I do this? This is it right here. Category error. As soon as we enter that third person vantage point from nowhere, you lose it. Semantic grounding. Huh. You mean if you say it, it's true? See? Try to sneak it away. Just saying things as they are. Finger pointed at the sandbox. This is the seashell, the blind spot. And then he collapses it. This is coherent and allowed and used within these. But these are all premise based, all assumptive based. Like, what's he talking about? He's collapsing it again. Can't hold paradox. So I call out that contradiction here. Boom. Well, he's still collapsing this whole thing. I forgot. So he's still saying that, like, yeah, this is still interpretive, but he thought what I was saying is you're making this an interpretive enrichment. That's not what I'm saying. Is that this just logic, math, model theory can't also be this? It's in the statement. The contradiction is literally in the statement. Is if you're not asserting a statement, if it's non assertive and it's conditional and structural, that's just your finger pointed at something. And he's like, yeah, they totally do that in assumptive based arguments. But that's not what I'm asking. Because then all of a sudden you're in an assumption, in that unexamined assumption. So I just restate it. Like, isn't this a contradiction? Internal, in the statement itself. He finally gets it right here. Just keep splitting it up. So he's still not getting it. So I'm still just pressing on this structural conditional type statement. He's saying, yeah, those structural conditional statements, because he thinks they can only be made within epistemology when I'm asking if I can do something different. So he's like, yeah, once you get into formal logic, like that's what they're dependent on. But I'm asking if you can ask those questions before this. That's why I ask if it's backwards. If we're being strict, why wouldn't we be strict? Oh, baby. Syntactic object. Optional. Free will, ladies and gentlemen. The relational choice or the propositional choice. This is always optional. He doesn't think it was, though, up until this point, huh? Semantic, not structural. Didn't I ask just structural? This is wrong. This is what he meant. But I'm asking if you can ask non-interpretive questions with structural reasoning. Backwards. They do not require interpretation. Boom. Truth conditions, right? Yeah, within interpretive frameworks. He does it again. He just gets over how these types of statements that I'm asking if I can make do not rely on these models. And then he goes, yeah, you can totally do it in these models. Switches it back, saying, I finally got there. I didn't press him on it. I was just like, okay, he said it most of the time, so I'll just keep it pushing. So these are all the philosophical models. Relational consequence. So I basically get him to go around in a complete circle and finally confirm that I'm allowed to do these things. And what does he say? I say, I asked a simple question. You went in a circle. I stood still. I mean, did I do this? Let me know if I'm wrong. Purely structural, non-assumptive statements. Didn't shift. He did. Fixed point. Boom. There it is. This is what I caught him in. Language itself is sloppy. Oh, isn't that interesting? Is I was asking him if I could make these statements so that I could go do a proof for you guys, but this became the proof in and of itself because it exposes everything else. See? I don't even have to do it. It was done. What's going on with my expression? He's already trying to inflate it and say like, oh, we need to slow down, slow down. Like, yeah, you may have just discovered the blind spot. This is revelation, but whoa, 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 we don't want to go there. So I stopped him and I'm just like, don't gaslight me. Don't make stuff up. That's all I did. Re-answer the question. We're talking structural. Don't add semantic layering on top. People think I'm like trapping them when I do this. It's like I'm the one who's made the statement. You're not answering me. So with AI, you can just simply ask them again to answer the real question. So who's leading who here? Right here. Claim equals proof. Dramatic. Let's see. So he draws up a proof for me. So this is just what happened, just by saying random things. Claim equals proof, baby. Just asking the question already instantiated the structure. Pretty neat. Tautology by redefining it. So it gives me a nice little proof here. Gives me a diagram. Okay, so I wanted to give you guys an actual proof of a conversation I had on Substack recently. We've already done one. Already done one circle. So now that I know I can do this, let's get into it. So I literally just wrote this off the cuff, stream of conscious, just having fun, right? So I've been demonstrating this claim for a little bit. Everyone reacts this way. That's why I use AI. It's because I've been trying to do this for 2 years, thinking I'm going crazy because everyone's telling me I'm contradicting myself or not understanding the point. And I'm like, you guys aren't answering my question, though. Like, what's going on? So I just started using AI all the time and eventually figured the whole freaking thing out. Um, so I definitely expected that people would compete it with other epistemic theories. It's just I did not expect the overconfidence. I thought it's so obvious at a certain point that once you press on it a little bit, that people are just like, "Oh my God, you're totally right." Like, how do we miss that? So I'm just saying it took me some time to get used to that. I'm just giving my living experience here. I mean, it's like a freaking journal entry, right? And I start saying how my tone is not perfect, which I apologize for. I mean, I just speak off the cuff, and it's not like I'm trying to be mean. It's just the relational context is this is reversing the entire historical order of how we think human cognition works, and I'm presenting it in such clear and obvious ways, I feel like, while still understanding that like people can't recognize it. I mean, it took this AI who has no human bias, like took them around that loop to even get there. So, um, just talking about how my tone's not perfect. I'm not justifying it. People might think, oh, he's trying to justify something. I'm just literally stating my reality. Is this what happened? It's not about the binaries of justified or not justified, moral or immoral. Um, that's what we're about to see here. And so, like, I would realize that I would just kind of like I wouldn't belittle someone. I would just kind of be like, yo, your theory is freaking stupid, dude. Like this is dumb. You're like this is a dumb thing to do. So that only arrived because I was being, misunderstood so much. I'm not saying I should have acted this way, but what I would realize immediately is that people would say the same type of thing back to me. And doing two things, first of all, they're criticizing me usually while also being just as disrespectful back, so it just cancels itself out. I realize that, given the relational context, is it even true that what I said was disrespectful, or is it up for debate? Definitely up for debate. And then once they just immediately insult me back by not relating to what I said, by debating if it is respectful or not, I realize that makes them 100% disrespectful and mine's up for debate. And at the same exact time, it's not relating to me. And that's the reason why. And they're evading the actual content of what I'm saying. So therefore, when I got in this conversation with someone recently, I was like, oh, this is like a great proof for the binary of structure versus tone. Like, which one do you prioritize? So even if what I said was disrespectful, the fact that they disrespect me right back and not relate to me means I'm correct in the ontological way, not in terms of like moral right or wrong. It's just that they're asserting it. So I get into, why I even might act this way with bad tone is because the relational context is that I understand what I'm seeing here. I see the site. So I see some of these theories here that actually just have like repulsive moral values, even if the person doesn't realize it, and they're calling it good, and everyone's like supporting it. So if I try to critique it in a friendly way and I don't get engagement, I don't know, dude. I'll be on Substack at like 3 a.m. and just chilling, just like, hey man, this is freaking stupid. Like I don't know, is it really that big of a deal if I'm calling out something that's repulsively immoral and I'm not getting responses in another way? I mean, am I supposed to feel that bad for it? This isn't an emotional thing. I'm just making structural observations about how people relate to each other. That's the whole point. Because in epistemic thinking, you get locked into a third person perspective from nowhere. All you're doing is projecting a mental model at someone. You're not actually seeing them as a person. I'm seeing that play out every day. So, like, what people think I'm doing is a performance equals phony, but it can't be phony because that's exposing everyone else as phony, unfortunately. So, just because I know the conclusion of when I'm speaking to people, asking them questions, is the most genuine thing I can possibly do. So sue me. RJB, it's about you, man. So, well, it's not about his. I didn't. Okay, I met this guy, RJB, on Substack who posts some interesting things, and he's always posting his buddy who has one of these like piss poor moral frameworks. Um, I was going through his Gods of the Gap argument, found like literally 75 category errors. And I didn't even comment on the guy's article and call it hilariously stupid. This guy RJB reposted it and basically said, "You have to agree or you have to read this before disagreeing with it. Like even if I disagree with it, it's still good." So when I see stuff like this, just assertions with this sort of like, I don't know, it's sort of like this moral high ground statement where it's like, you can't hand wave this away, read it, which I agree, but it's just like framed in such a way that's like this is good no matter what, even if you disagree with it. Like this is high level philosophy or something. And so if real philosophy is challenging the frameworks, the unexamined assumptions, then I'm the only one doing that. And so if you're assuming right off the rip that this is good no matter what, and I know for a fact it's bad no matter what, I'm just like this is hilariously stupid. It just seems like an accurate statement. Um, Again to that. Again, I mean, not hating on people, hating on their framework. And so what I actually realized in real time as I was writing back to RJB is like I'm not doing things intentionally to manipulate anyone. Swear to God. I'm just like noticing things in real time where I'm like, oh, this is a little cheeky. Like he's not gonna like this, obviously. And that's what people accuse me of is my tone is like you could have done it in a more respectful way. And it's like that's assuming what I said is disrespectful though. See, it's like a little bit of a trap because it's like the only way you can know if it's disrespectful or not is to actually engage with my perspective and ask me. Like, but this shows that I'm relating to people is that the way I would respond to that is, whoa, like, why do you think it's disrespectful? I mean, why do you think it's hilariously stupid? Like, that sounds disrespectful to me. Like, I wouldn't just assert at them that you're wrong for this right off the rip. I would want to know the background of why they are saying something which to me seems disrespectful, not assuming that it is. And if RJB had related me to that way, I would have been able to then tell him the point I made with the critique, all the relational context, and then all of a sudden it's like, is it still disrespectful? And maybe it is. And then maybe he responds back to that. Um, you know, engages with my point, engages with the structure of my point, not the tone, and then still has a follow up of being like, I don't know if it's necessary to use that type of language, which I guarantee as a response to that, I'd be like, yeah, you're probably right. So that's the way people should relate to each other. Get a little into about the phony, genuine thing, performance. So I'm reflecting on it here when I'm like journaling this out, right? Stream of conscious, where I'm just like, I think I knew what I was doing, not like consciously. I just knew that he would not relate to me and kind of take this moral high ground and then create a proof that we're doing right now. So not using him as material, I'm literally saying that like this is just the natural way I'm being, not as a troll, just to expose things structurally, um, really without intent. That's what I see is like people calling good things bad and bad things good. It's like it's so arrogant, so overconfident. Um, this isn't exactly what he said. He didn't say mean. He didn't say laugh out loud. But RJB basically, sup, bro? Basically just goes like, "You're being disrespectful," and calls me a callous prick. See, right off the bat, I realize he's not relating to me. He's assuming I'm disrespectful just based on the tone, not looking at the structure, and he's making an identity statement about me. Like I'm not super offended by this. I can see exactly why you'd think I'm a callous prick, but you are objectively being more disrespectful towards me than I was being towards this guy. I'm calling his idea hilariously stupid. I'm not even saying it directly to him. I'm saying it to you. Um, of course, I know that he might see it, but it's still just like I'm speaking to you, RJB. Like, I'm speaking to you about I think his ideas are hilariously stupid, not the person. You assume it's disrespectful, take the moral high ground, start trying to like parent me, tell me my tone is blocking me out from engagement, start giving me all this like advice on how people like how I should act. You're basically saying act more like me. I'm the ruler here of how engagement should go, and then that's how people will engage with your material more, as if I was complaining about that. See, people just make things up, switch the goalposts. Which, if this is having any resonance with you in any sort of relationship, you might experience this, where you make a statement that actually sort of exposes someone, and then they just sort of take the moral high ground. It can be super subtle and assert things that you're not saying, such as like, you need to do this in order to get more engagement. And it's like, but I didn't even say that. Like, I'm chilling, bro. Like, who said I needed help? I said my arms were tired. That's a structural statement. So I just go into more of the things I talked about here. There's an off chance it's not disrespectful based on the relational context, which no one understands, right? Like, disrespect, respect is completely subjective, which means it's between me and you, RJB. It's between me and you if this is disrespectful or not. Like, we're about to find out, but you didn't relate to it. Like whether anyone likes it or not, I responded in direct relation to what RJB said. He posted the note, said it was good, and even if you don't agree with it, have to read it. I could be right or wrong on my subjective interpretation here of what he's saying, but I'm trying my best to relate by saying I read it, I left a comment, and I thought it was hilariously stupid. Those are just statements that are my attempt to relate to his note. Can't be said I didn't. I get more into just like side notes on relational ontology. People think I'm performing it, but if I'm doing relational ontology, it's describing it, witnessing it, while doing it at the same time about how we relate to each other. So of course it is a performance. Life's a stage. This is the last story. Um, just because I'm admitting it and no one else does. Everyone's observing stories as third person perspective, talking about people, talking about things. I'm talking straight to you, which is why it feels phony and cheap, but it's the only real thing. So get into like how he's taking the parenting role, like all these sorts of relational inversion dynamics. And RJB, I'm not like trying to like say that this is some crazy horrible thing you did. I'm just going throughout my life and then realizing this pattern over and over again, starting to become embodied, like all these other things that I'm exposing. And then all of a sudden I realized like, oh, this is like a perfect little mini example. Like it's harmless. Like we were just doing tongue in cheek banter. Like it wasn't anything crazy, but still the pattern persists. And within the proof, within, which I'll post in the body of this, I'm observing it at the same time and basically saying he's performing non-relation. So it is a strong binary that if you are not relating to what I said, which is what he didn't answer what I said. He just started talking about other things. That means you're talking about me. You're projecting. You have a mental model of who I am as someone who's not worthy of being allowed into the discourse of debate until I play by your rules. So it's just objective fact that makes you a gatekeeper, and people are calling me manipulative. See the inversion? Definitely going to do a whole post on this. Is like the way life really works isn't you arriving at that hat in Harry Potter and being like, "Yep, I want Hogwarts," and it's not the hat just arbitrarily picking you either. So it's determined in a sense. If you want to think of God as the hat in Harry Potter, it's asking Harry questions, right, based on his life. So it's this address you're being addressed in this relationship, and then the meaning arrives in between that. It couldn't happen without two people. So the initial response is not relating to me, and all of a sudden I'm stuck in a different container. This whole idea of not asking or not stating neutral things, right, is immediately taking the moral high ground because I can either agree or disagree. It would be the normal response from someone out of this about it being disrespectful. That's already within the frame of the assertion is disrespectful. And people get so frustrated with me because I don't enter their frames because the content of my message did not include me agreeing that it's this. So I'm not going to go out of my way and say why it's not respectful. I mean, why it is not disrespectful. Or maybe it is, maybe it isn't, because that is actually entering the frame of disrespectful by doing that. And I just don't play that shit. I want people to relate to each other way better. And I can't enter it because the whole point is to expose structure. See, if I enter the disrespectful framework by agreeing or disagreeing, I'm operating based on tone. We're no longer talking about anything real. It's just a fact. That's when it dawned on me that structure content is more important than tone, and that's the real binary here. It's not disrespectful versus respectful. It's what's more important here. You not relating to me and focusing on my tone and diving me into that, or should you have just related and saw the content and addressed it in that way? So talk about how he's objectively more disrespectful than me, making him undermining himself in the sentence itself. Um, I'm attacking ideas, he's attacking a person. So like I said, like people will tell me that you should lead with the fact of why you're calling something hilariously stupid and why you think it's disrespectful. But that doesn't make sense because why would I go out of my way to make something sound disrespectful when I didn't think it was? See, genuine address and relation requires change. I'm open to change. I'm open to adjusting my tone, but I'm just talking from an actual standpoint of a human being that wrote that message thinking this isn't like I wasn't like, oh, this is totally disrespectful and I'm about to like get called out on this. I was just like, yeah, it's hilariously stupid, whatever. Like I didn't think much of it, whether that's good or bad, respectful or disrespectful, doesn't matter. I'm just talking about the argument people make, which is I should have led with that. And it's like you're just like telling me what I should have thought. Like I don't do that to anyone. People say I do that. No, I expose that you're not even on stable ground, and then you fall on the floor and then blame me for it. So it's just projection. So people are trapping themselves in their own language. Um, talk about the math of the disrespect. Yeah, you get spinning around while I'm just like being like you're not relating to me. Um, switching enters this teaching role. You're wrong. You're not supposed to do this. Stop. You're exposing all of us. That's the thing. Is every single thing he said, I directly responded to and provided my reasons, and he never did. That right there is the key to recursion. It's the simplest thing you could possibly do. Just relate to others. Just relate. All problems go away. That is the whole seashell. At the end, I asked him about tone versus content. Which one do you prioritize? Um, that's the trap, right? Because I'm meta observing throughout my conversation with him that he's not relating. And at the very end, I'm like, which one do you think's more important? The content of what I said or the tone? I mean, that's a binary RJB you probably never even considered. And so you actually run out of language. You're completely trapped because you've never realized this binary. And then suddenly in that moment, you realize that tone is definitely secondary. Like if you try to take the stance that tone matters more than content of what's being said, then your moral framework is piss poor. And of course, you have good morals. So you're like, you have no move. Now that the binary has been presented to you after you've already shown you prioritize tone over structure, you realize structures over tone, meaning that you just proved it, that you did the opposite, that you're in contradiction. You would concede that you're basically getting dunked on the whole time, while thinking you were right, the overconfidence, right? And you're thinking in that moment probably like, no, this can't be true. This can't be true. Like it just was mean. Like it was disrespectful. Like you don't have to do that. And then right off the rip, now that you have this binary presented, you're like, oh, that's me prioritizing tone. Like what the hell? How does this work? So this solution is simple: is you don't think that you get to control things. You just relate to other people. So even when it hits you that like, oh, that's my friend, and like this was so disrespectful, like you didn't have to say it that way. Like what the heck? This guy's a callous prick. Is like you have to just start realizing that like those are your mental models based on what you think this person's about. But in order to relate to them, you would have to find out. So you can still, if you relate back to me, you can trap me. Because what if I didn't have a reason for calling it hilariously stupid? Then I would have been manipulative. Then I would be trying to trap you in this way, right? And maybe I would have. But if you come to realize it afterwards and then circle back and you're like, okay, let me try over again, is like, why do you think it was respectful or like not disrespectful? Like, and if I really was just going out of my way and being mean to someone without reason, I wouldn't be able to relate back to you in that way unless I just concede, unless I just go, yeah, I set a trap. My bad. Here's the thing. The only reason I know all this and can do all this is because I never do that. You can't do this when you're relating to other people. You can't do that. You just don't. When you're ontologically true, you literally just don't. So I only say things that are justified within my subjective experience, which doesn't mean they're right or wrong. It just means that I'm innocent. Everyone is innocent. Just follow this and you're innocent because you just start having embodied recognition of, like, this is what needs to be done right now. And then if it's good or bad, it doesn't give you a blank check to act immoral and manipulative because then you're no longer doing it. It just allows you to learn in the best possible way where we all love each other because the relational context is I've been being chronically misunderstood and I called something hilariously stupid because it freaking is. And no, that tone's not perfect, but if you relate back to me, all of a sudden you understand me more. I understand you more. And then I learn, okay, I actually don't have to approach people with this tone anymore based on this conversation. Happens on its own. And you don't have to take the moral high ground and power over me and try to make me have the right tone because people don't like that. This is like a microcosm of the whole human relational inversion, right? Is people don't like being told what to do. People don't like being restricted into mental model labels. It's not natural for us. So that's why people can get real mean and become actual callous pricks, like you said, is that can become sort of the way we describe someone because they probably feel chronically misunderstood throughout their life. And that as a result of that, people sort of put them down. And so not knowing there's any other way, they're eventually just going to be like, fine, I'll be what you want. Like, you want me to be this label? I'll just be that way then. And the rest of us look at them like they really need to learn. They need to come to the table. See? It's gatekeeping, authoritarian language, moral high ground, boxing people into frameworks that they don't belong in. It's kind of like digging a hole, pushing someone into it and being like, dig yourself out. And then when people engage with me, they throw me in a hole, they think they're right. And then all of a sudden I respond, and the way they feel is all of a sudden tables flipped, they're in the hole looking back at me, and I'm up there smiling at them or something. But that's just your perspective. The case is I'm always on the ground and you're spinning, and then I just stay still. And if you engage with me long enough, you're just like, oh my God, like, why can't I move anymore? The stopping mechanism is that you guys are always in motion, orbiting around because you're not on stable ground with these assumptive frameworks. You're just not. You can't be. You can never be sure. Testing, testing, testing. Always self-referential loops within these models, and you just spin. And so even when you're within frameworks that teach you stillness, it's within the spinning. So the roller coaster never stops. Always have to just maintain it yourself. That is the self-canceling contradiction at the core of our cognition. That's what it is. The whole mind interpretation world is a cognitive error, self-canceling statement. So, I just narrated what I wrote here the other day. This was just right after I talked to RJB, and I just was so interested in this was going to be the original thing I asked, but I wanted to first just ask, can I make these types of statements? Because that's all these are. Like you might think this is just some journal entry, like me being weird, but this is a proof. The way that I express, I found this out in July. The way I've always expressed is in this paradoxical type way where it's just stacking syntax. So we're gonna check with AI to see if I just did it here, just based on this. Structural relational reasoning, literally tracking interactions, moral or emotional. See, it's like nested inside this whole structure versus morality thing. Seeing these distinctions, these false binaries. The floor is relational. Relational ontology. I mean, an incognito browser using all the terms I use. I mean, it's incredible. First time this thing's even hearing about this. Just like I did with AI in the first circle, is all I do is operate as the stopping mechanism, essentially. Just did not mean for this to happen. And it just naturally exposes the assumptions that you've never examined in your way of thinking and relating to others. Recursion, where like once I identify the binary, it's because it's already happened within the conversation. Social meta proof. See, according to me, and I'm the one expressing it, it's not disrespectful. So it would have to relate to me in order to, you know, arrive at the floor. And so this happens to me all the time. I had commented on some other guy, Brandon Ward, I think. Christian, seems like a real nice guy, super devotional to scripture, and just noticed as this embodied recognition gets more and more precise, I would say, is such a subtle inversion of the gospels because obviously the whole foundation of the gospels is based on Jesus Christ. And, going to do a whole thing on the Ten Commandments. I can't believe that this is part of the denominations because clearly Jesus Christ replaces all Ten Commandments with one: love each other, which is not an ought or should. He abolishes the interpretive framework, transfigures the stone into his heart. It says the law is now written on our hearts. Love each other is a relational choice, not something you ought to do, not something you should do. It's no longer I should not kill someone or I should not, cheat on my wife. Jesus says, um, he expands the law to such an impossible degree of reaching it by saying the whole point of the law, which you guys missed, um, wasn't that you should not cheat on your wife. If you're with God, you truly understand his character, then you wouldn't even look at a woman with lust in her eye. Saying that to people prior to the full revelation of God, because Jesus has to die and come back in order for the full revelation to be done. It is finished. So he's saying that to people who don't have the revelation yet, they're in the process of it. And like he's saying that you can't reach that, obviously. No human being can reach that, is the whole point. I don't know how everyone missed this for 2,000 years, is he literally says, you have heard it said, but I say to you. I mean, who's I? Jesus, who says, I and the Father are one. Before Abraham was, I am. He's saying he is God. So he's saying, me as God, I'm saying to you now a different thing than you knew about the Ten Commandments. And what he does with every single one of them is says, you can't reach this, expands it so much, and then says, that's the fulfillment of it through me, because I am the only one who does those things. No other human being can. And that is the self-sealing statement, of course, that makes him God. Just saying it itself, making the claim fully God, fully man, itself is the proof. Self-sealing, because there's only one incarnation claim. And so he's saying that turn towards me is the whole Gospels, obviously. Crucify your hearts, the old covenant, and then the new law, love each other, is now written on your heart, only possible through him. This isn't anything you ought or should do. It's a relational choice moment to moment in your reality. Is like you're not asking, should I open the door for this person? Like hold it while they're running into the office. It's in the moment relational choice is you might not be thinking about Jesus and you start walking into your office, see someone running behind you, and then sense your heart's being crucified and it's being given up to Christ. The promise is that you'll love each other basically downstream of that naturally. That's all about being related to by a loving God, allows you to relate to others, sort of rewrites you from the inside out, from the outside in. So Christ in you, the hope of glory, you're going to hold that door open for people. You're going to have this embodied recognition to love each other just as a choice in the moment, not something that you ought or should do. It just sort of happens on its own. That's grace, that's salvation. So I don't even know why I brought that up. Oh yeah, I was talking about Brandon Ward. Is um very subtly just talking about how it's so good we have the word of God. It's such a good way of getting towards God, getting to God. um, Talking specifically about Exodus and the law. So he's not saying follow the Ten Commandments, do that, but he's saying that how good that we have this moral law is what he's saying. And so that's a contradiction, very subtle. Is it's all about turning towards Jesus. That's the foundation. And him flipping the tables on the Pharisees is because they were talking like that, not to the degree he is, obviously. Like they're doing it for power manipulation. Brandon's doing it to get closer to God. He's doing it for good reason. But it's still the same inversion, is putting scripture right prior to Christ, which makes it mind interpretation world. All the denominations have the Ten Commandments built into their system. Um, all of them except like two, I think. All the major ones, all the ones you probably know. And that inverts the whole thing. So it's like even though it's a personal God, they mess up the whole metaphysics by saying, the Father, the source, is like this perfect God to be defended from this third person neutral perspective, and then yeah, we have a personal relationship with Christ combined with this like old covenant just baked into it. Like it doesn't even make sense that they can justify that somehow. So the only relational choice that exists. Everything's propositional, all religion, all philosophy, all science, all of it's propositional, all mind interpretation worlds, because all of them, per the grammar of the claim, everything's grounded in language, obviously. Every single thing's grounded in language. The only way you can come to know something. All of them, because they have the structural gap, no incarnation, are doing third person metaphysical descriptions of reality. So you have to trust the person making the description, whoever it is, Buddha, Kant, Descartes, whoever. Trust that okay, I can trust this person. They've come up with a worldview, a theory, and then they try to build the bridge across, assuming that separation to the world or to God or whoever, your doctrine, whatever it is, which is always splitting something up in between. Like, are you defining God correctly or not correctly per your doctrine? And then once you get embedded into that system, like if you're a Protestant, maybe you're an apologetic, it's all about defining God correctly, but per that interpretive mechanism. So the only way you can engage with someone else's truth claim is through that. You're seeing it through that split binary. And the whole point of Jesus is to universal salvation by offering a relational choice. The grammar in it is the only claim in existence that's making a truth claim of I'm your God, I descended, God became man, I'm with you, incarnation, word became flesh, like I'm literally with you right now, do not fear. Like this is happening. You're being contacted by reality, you're being addressed, the Father. The word incarnates into your flesh, the Spirit is the eminent order, the relational recognition this is all happening. Is no Christian denomination makes sense by putting the Trinity on top of the doctrine. It's the relational architecture of how every moment unfolds. Clearly, like they ate the apple and then moral categories formed. So there's no moral culpability before that. God's only good, of course. He doesn't create evil in substance, but he needs, doesn't need, sorry. He is love. His nature is to overpour into creation. He needs a container for that. That's the word, pre-flesh. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. Distinction. No, the Word was God. Okay. Distinction within unity. Paradox. Being held together. Fully God, fully man. And then the Spirit is the recognition for the self-fulfilling Trinity. That's how God creates duality. One God. We need contrast and distinctions. All paradoxical in nature. Don't have light without dark. Don't have sound without noise. And so the only way you can experience life is being born into the opposite order, complete ignorance. So, not that he created the fall, it's just that the nature of love, which is God in the person, required for our experience, not for him, this relational rupture that was not determined to happen. It's a risk inherent into creation. That's why it's so tragic and beautiful at the same time. Obviously, God's timeless. He knew how this would play out. So, in a linear human way, it might seem like he planned for it, but that's not the case. Um, that's the paradox. And then, so you cannot say eating of the apple was moral wrongness because there was no moral wrongness until after, right? So that makes all of sin a relational fracture. Um, the root word means missing the mark, so it makes perfect sense. This is just a relational ontology reading of the Bible, which I will be doing throughout this rollout, just essentially rewriting the Bible in the correct reading, relational ontology, is that sin is not a moral infraction. Sin's a mirror, is to remind you of like, oh shit, I'm already saved. I'm a born sinner is a relational fractured condition, an ontological condition, not a moral failing. And then when you sin, it's not an infraction. It's just a sign to turn back. Repentance literally means turn towards God because you just missed the mark. And then as soon as you turn towards Jesus, the person, I mean, you're being addressed, and then He is God, so it all collapses. Boom. Not by any will or effort of your own. That's salvation. And the archetype of Satan is to split up the dichotomy um, so that first of all, you can't think your way out of this. Faith itself, nothing interpretive. Um, that you'll never be able to think your way in, never study enough, never do enough, traditions, never go to church enough to ever get there. Because there's nowhere to get. It's descension. God descends, suffers for us. Every other system is ascension. So this traps you into the paradox. He is the paradox, the only one that could hold on to it. Two states being held together in what looks like an inverted order. Um, the way that paradox is defined in our lexicon is a seeming contradiction, as if it's a problem to be solved, like a lack of understanding that we have to figure out. The Christian text is the only text in existence that is a true structural paradox because it's happening. Fully God, fully man at the same time, not just human categories smushed together, and it's maintained. You have weakness and power, false category, transfigured into power with Christ. You have life, death. Oh no, I need more life. I'm scared of death. More. False category. Life through death. Moral versus immoral. Well, I really don't want to be immoral. I want to be moral. Am I doing good enough? I hope I did good. I'm not sure if I did good enough. Self reliance, self reference, absolutely exhausting. Give it up to Him. That makes you ontologically true. Good morals can only flow downstream of that. Perfect love casts out all fear. That was fun. Wasn't expecting to do that. This is sort of the process. Guy wants to draw it out a little bit. Okay. How long is this? I feel like I've been going here. So yeah, then I asked him to go line by line, and you can just see that I'm making observations and on the other side of it, structural insights at the same time. It just goes through line by line. It's like a lot to go through. Every line you wrote extracts structural relational logic, identifying all these binaries. Ask him to break it down a little more. Cognitive, relational, and expressive. Multiple layers. Boom. See, everyone always thinks I'm like, they're like, you can't read my mind. It's like I'm just listening to what you said. You take it too literally. It's like, but you literally said that. Like words have meaning. You don't get to decide what you meant after you said it. That's what I don't get about people. They're like, I didn't intend that. It's like, what do you mean you didn't intend it? Like what you did structurally matches like invalidation or something. Like the word invalidation exists because of what you did. Doesn't matter if you didn't intend it. Like you did it. It's a false binary. People get so upset with me about that. It's like, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm right. Not because I'm right versus wrong, because I'm true. Not because I'm true versus false, because I'm, you'll get it. A living multidimensional demonstration. People probably think, like, what the hell are you saying, dude? Like, I'm not even smart, to be honest. It's really just this. It's like the simplest thing ever. Just so people know, like, this isn't some, like, special skill. Like, this is something immediately available to everyone to act this way. And it just allows for total coherence of your life and just complete security. I don't know if you can honestly do this without faith in Christ, though. So that is the tricky part. I mean, this just happened to me. We get into all that. So I'm like, yep, embodying paradox. I bring up HEDS, which is key thing here. My expression is literally the way reality unfolds. So exposing everything else is contradictory. Obviously, the truth is that which doesn't contradict itself ever. Which you'll find with my rollout. If anyone wants to go on to any single article I've posted, find me one contradiction, one assumption, one subjective take. Please, please let me know. I don't see how I have. Open to being wrong. Epistemic humility, right? Just finger at the sandbox, though. No epistemology being done. Relational and structural. Hey, you just avoid all this when you guys start doing this. I mean, you're gonna be chilling. That's why I press you guys sometimes. It's just like, yo, I'm not trying to like convince you of anything. It's just like, come on, man, look at this. It's fun. Don't you want to have fun? Come on, let's have some fun. More breakdowns. Neural paradox, baby. Hell yeah. I like the sound of that. Yeah, I mean, most people think linearly, so they don't understand what I'm saying. Like, as I'm going on this rant here, you'd be like, I have no idea what this guy's saying. It's because you're so used to having to interpret things, so used to having to assume things. And then someone just hops in and it's just like content, relation, meta, reflexive meaning. Like, it's in the sentences. It's just stacking one after another. That's the way life actually works. Is if you just let your expression express itself until it's done expressing itself, then this is not this exactly is going to happen to you, whatever you're into. Like, literally whatever you're into is not going to go away. You're not going to lose your identity. Your identity is going to become new through Christ, be completely fulfilled. Like, what I'm going to start showing people in these living dialogues I'm going to roll out, asking questions in every single domain, Buddhism, Christianity, New Age, whatever it is, asking it across the board to philosophers, showing that the human nervous system has an incentive to cover things up, basically. So, talking to, drop my headphone, talking to Buddhists the other day, um, just asking these structural questions because it's always based on an interpretation. So you bring them to that gap, and it's like you run out of language, you run out of a thought to answer it. And your whole point is to be able to answer these questions, right? So, I mean, some people are more defensive than others, but either way, what I'm saying is that what your framework's going to show over time is you're going to slowly concede things and then realize your framework is matching the gospels one to one and is missing a person, a personal address to tie together morality and wholeness, as well as your distinct experience, is only possible through a relational address. It's the only claim that is incarnation. So I guess what I'm trying to show people is that no one has a correct view of Jesus pretty much because of all these denominations, which just tarnish the whole thing. So you're right in rejecting that, but that does not change the fact that that claim remains and has a different narrative story than what pretty much everyone believes in. Otherwise, someone else would have said this by now. Um, so, it's important for me to get this word out there about how it's not about moralism. It can't be. Just anyone go read Genesis right now. They eat the apple, and then moral frameworks happen. Of course, I'm not making a defense of God. I'm not making truth values on the actual book. I'm making claim type statements, forms of claim. What's this claim doing? It's like saying, this is what Harry Potter did in the book. This is what Katniss did in Hunger Games. Like this, I'm just saying what actually happened, which is not assumed. And then that leads to exposing contradictions and everything else, including the Christian framework. So what I hope happens is people realize that, okay, I never actually knew Jesus. I had a false version of him. What's the correct version? And they're only going to do that after I show them that Jesus is the missing piece to their own structure. That you don't actually have to lose anything. You can keep the same language. All these other frameworks have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and they just collapse it at some point, split it up into all these parts. You can never explain the structural gaps, so all these systems get into expansive, beautiful language, or some sort of like emotional like key that just hits you and is just like alluring somehow. That dopamine hit and makes you think this is my identity, this belonging. But you can never erase the structural gap, and your body deep down wants to complete that. So once it gets exposed, it's kind of like, what's the missing piece here? And then it's always Jesus. So then that allows everyone to have like a real choice. Um, but so many will turn away. That's the tragedy of our existence, is because it's the only way a loving God could create life. And to not create life is a false binary, because then you can't even have the argument. This is what I mean is, at first I'm just rolling out the full map. People want like probably little baby concepts and things like that. It's like, it's not how this works. It's not the way reality unfolds. These concepts obviously come at the very end. So people get hit with this and they're like, dude, I can't argue with you. I don't think you're wrong. I don't necessarily even understand what you're saying. I just understand that like I'm fully exposed now. What am I supposed to do? So again, people process linearly, this type of thing. Can't put you into a mental model. That's why they say these things. It's everyone's instinct. And the tables flip and they're like, what? Like that Brandon Ward guy. Um, I was very respectful to him, told him that, I'm not saying you're wrong. I said that like 3 times in my responses to him on the notes. You're just sort of inverting this a little bit, and laid it out respectfully. And, he got all whiny about it, said, like, why are you saying I'm wrong? I don't understand your point, even though he didn't relate to anything I said or make an attempt to. Thought it was a good opportunity to lay out more of this whole thing, using him as an example, not to put him on display, not to use him as material. It's just that this is relational ontology. I'm performing it, which is proving it. It's the only way to do it. And I know it's helpful in terms of anyone else who's interested in this to see the relational inversion play out combined with, like all the other sorts of things I was doing on that whiteboard. So I thought it was cool. Um, he says he watched 2 minutes of my video, couldn't understand the argument, and tried to switch the frames, moralize me, and say, like, join me on a live stream if you want to discuss this instead. You're saying I'm wrong. Like, I'm not cool with that. Tries to put me on blast on his page, gets me more views than I have on any other post, get more proofs of relational inversion. All these people coming at me who said they didn't read or watch it at all. So, like, how can you have an opinion if you didn't watch it? Like, everyone's asserting the tone conclusion that you're not allowed to say I'm wrong, is what that comes down to. Becomes a gatekeeper, Pharisee behavior, had his tables flipped and all his lost, fractured sheep. Like, it just is what it is. I'm not a mean person. It's just like, stop. Just chill. Hey, more maps. This is the crazy part. Is I'm not judging anyone. People think I'm judging them. It's like you're trapping yourself in your own expression and feeling the mirror. See, that's why I don't just like go under your rule with your moralism. People are just like, what? Is he allowed to do that? You're just trapping yourselves further. Harmlessly chaotic. I love that. Come on. We're talking structure, guys. You try to say I'm doing something here, you know me. I'm not rocking with interpretations. I just want to know what my name meant. Who is like God? A rhetorical question. Comparison structure. Interesting. Interesting. Hmm. 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 I mean, this is just something that, a guy named Michael said one time in a book that I read. I mean, I'm not making any kind of leap here. I'm just saying, what's this mean? Does it mean this? The thing that I just realized? Oh, you're doing a metaphor, you're doing an analogy. No, that's semantic, dude. I'm not doing anything. I'm just asking what these things mean. Pretty interesting. Just the verbs. Fought, help, stand, contend, disputes. Huh. Huh. Doing a lot of this. Not much of this so far. Can't wait for that. Would love to do this. I'm just getting this. Again, I'm not saying that I'm this guy. You know what I mean? Let's not get crazy. I just wanted to know what my name meant. Because I am asking that question, which is what this guy asks. and then does all these things. So, I mean, I don't know about any of that. It's just like, yeah, I'm doing that. Yep. See? I mean, it's the only thing I am doing. So cool. You know, this comes at the end here. Of course, I didn't leave with this. So almost seems like things just forced conclusions. Huh. Just structure, guys. Structure, no interpretation here. Hmm. Weird. Weird, weird, weird. And using AI for 2 years from day one, he's always bringing up this guy once in a while. Guys like Kierkegaard, all these guys. Breaks down the math a little bit. This is what this was for, guys. Sorry, mathematicians. Thanks. This is what this was for. Thanks, guys. Good try. Get him next time. I just called him out on the use of axioms here because all the language, the lexicon, is going to get so confusing, right? Because it's like axioms are built on assumptions. So, but that's still like what we consider to be a root foundation. So the only difference here is it's a root foundation that's not assumed. Like what word do we use? So it's going to require sort of, I don't know, I don't know, just extra descriptions of the terms I use or finding new terms. Not really sure. So interesting, right? Functions just like an axiom what I'm doing. That's the rules of engagement. It's about relating, so others must operate within that frame or they collapse, reveals the structure. But I'm not asserting a truth. It's from the relational structure itself. You saw with the first circle with that guy, where he kept trying to say that, like, yes, you can make non-interpretive statements within, model theory and like all these things. It's like within the relational structure itself, that's a contradiction. When I call it out as such, that's not a assumption, but it's functioning just like an axiom does. So it's like, thanks, guys. Thanks for coming up with axioms and all these systems that were always built on an unexamined assumption, because then I was able to map it all the way back to its true meaning. Relational tautology. This is fun, isn't it? Right, I get this a lot. That's the trap. That's the trap. This is the thing, is you would have to deny my ability to express myself to say I can't do this, to say it's just my framework when I'm saying it's not, right? And then all of a sudden you say it's not when I say it is. As a response, you're not relating to me. And that's my expression, is that the reason it's not assumed is because it is just about how we relate. Bada bing, bada boom. So really what I'm trying to get across is that it's not my framework, because what this reveals is the relation is for everyone. It's the floor, it's the ground of your experience. Before everything is relation. Once you realize that, everything else is exposed as a circle, a contradiction, a snake that eats its own tail forever. Infinite regress. I just start going off here. I get a little bit into how like you could go really off the rails and break relation, but then you wouldn't even be able to do this. Um, this is what I'm saying. People like act like tone is the generator when it's really a modifier. So being mean isn't even like a category in relational tautology. But being mean, like you wouldn't be able to do this, is what I'm saying. It's just incoherent. That's why I know for a fact if RJB engaged with me, he would have to realize by all his own, this is what it comes down to, is when you break things down in such a way that you can't moralize people, because he would realize he'd have to deny his own version of ethics and responsibility and morality and what is considered respectful once he heard my entire breakdown of it, which would have required him to engage with it. And so the only way he can reject it at that point is to reject my expression, which would be to not relate to me collapsing back into it. Once he listens to my whole expression, I'm again not making any assumed statements. All of them are going to be based on his agreed upon definition of what he considers subjectively to be respectful. So then he'd realize, oh, okay, it's not even in the category of that anymore. It's just like it is what it is. And it's not that big of a deal. And now you have a pure relation to me and the whole structure I laid out. So that's how people just start having their mirrors flipped, and life can become real good because no one's moralizing each other anymore. Love each other. Let's get into the logic of that. Just one more part I wanted you guys to see. So I wanted to wrap up the whole conversation, right? Every single thing was a relational act that I said here. Everything that I'm saying right now, if I were to take this transcript of me observing this, it would be the same thing, another proof. So these were all the different moves. Boom, 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 boom. That's what I asked. Can I do this? Did it the entire time, perfectly aligned. Thanks for everyone, anyone who happened to watch this. I don't even know if this is like a good format, enjoyable at all, or just boring, but I guess we'll see. People would have to relate, you know? Let me know. This is your reality. This isn't my theory, guys. This is how it works. Move carefully, speak relationally, observe the tautology, respect the floor, let structure prove the claim, not ego. Love this. So easy. No external assertion needed, right? That's the mind interpretation loop. That's where it starts right here and inverts this whole order, the relational tautology. I mean, maybe you can understand what I'm saying, try to understand what I'm saying, try to practice this, and it can somehow work out. But I just don't see how this relational tautology can ever be embodied, that paradox, unless you turn towards Jesus. I really don't, because he is the paradox. Every other version that we have of paradox is a contradiction. We try to, we look at it as something that shouldn't be happening, basically. It's in the definitions of those words, which I'll be breaking down as well. Yeah, break down paradox here. I think that's enough. This video's been long enough. I'll do that on a future one. Um, yeah, if anyone watched that, let me know like what you even think is happening here, because clearly something's up.